Good morning, and welcome to your morning cereal. Okay, good morning, and welcome to Thursday. Now, I don't want to scare you, but today is International Polar Bear Day. So if you see a polar bear, give it a hug. But be careful, it might be mad because it has to share its one and only day of the year with those godforsaken koalas. Wait, no, I read that wrong. It's Kahlua Day. It's also National Kahlua Day. So that's great news. And if you don't like either of those, it's also National Pokemon Day, Strawberry Day, Toast Day, Retro Day. I like that one. National No Brainer Day. I like that one too. Big Breakfast Day. The list goes on and on. Bottom line, what a great day to be alive and be a polar bear. Okay. Today's quotes, one fun, nostalgic quote, and then a second quote to tease our book review later in the episode. Hopefully, one of these quotes will speak to you, kickstart your day in a positive direction. All right, the first quote is from singer Rod Stewart, and he says, quote, "Life is so brief and time is a thief when you're undecided," end quote. This is a great quote. I mean, our time here is precious, so be confident when you pick the direction you want your life to head, and then chase it tirelessly. And today's teaser quote from the book review is, quote, "In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty," end quote. And as usual, we'll unpack that here in just a few minutes during the book review segment. But first, let's jump into our usual dose of fun and historic facts from this day in history. Today's news, facts, and birthdays are for February 27th. Starting back in 1814, that's when Beethoven's Symphony No. 8 in F major, it premiered in Vienna. And this next fact is very close to one of my buddies' hearts. In 1827, the very first Mardi Gras was celebrated in New Orleans. Then skipping up to 1932, on this date, American actress Elizabeth Taylor was born in London. Also on this date in 1933, the neutron was discovered by English physicist James Chadwick, and he was later awarded the Nobel Prize for his discovery. Then in 1940, Martin Kamen and Sam Rubin, they discovered the process of the carbon-14 dating at the University of California Radiation Laboratory in Berkeley, California. Then in 1951 on this date, the 22nd Amendment was ratified. It effectively limits the number of terms that a U.S. president can serve at 2. Then in 1980, the song "I Will Survive," it won the first and the last Grammy ever for the Best Disco Recording category. Then in 1991, U.S. President George H.W. Bush, he ordered a ceasefire effective at midnight and declared victory in the Persian Gulf War, which was a conflict triggered by Iraq's invasion and occupation of Kuwait in August of 1990. Then in 1996, on this date, the first ever appearance of Pokemon happened in a role-playing video game, Pocket Monsters Red and Green. I have no idea what any of that means, but I do know the word Pokemon. All right, well, happy birthday if today is your birthday. You share a birthday with actress Kate Mara. You may know her from House of Cards. She's 42 today. And here we have it, my very first editorial correction from yesterday. Yesterday I said it was Josh Groban's birthday. Well, it's actually today on February 27th. So today, Josh Groban is 44. My apologies, Josh. Call me back. And then finally, retired LA Laker James Worthy. He's 64 today. And the number one movie on this date back in 1990 was Back to the Future 2. And no doubt, we all heard the math of how far back the original film went. It went 30 years back from 1985 to 1955. That's like going back today to 1995. But in the second film, Marty McFly went into the future, and he went all the way to 2015. Well, in 30 years from now, it'll be 2055. Now that I'd be interested in seeing what's changed. Time will tell. And the number one song on this date back in 1979 was "Do You Think I'm Sexy" by Rod Stewart. Now, this song was voted as the Rolling Stones magazines as one of the greatest 500 songs ever. And apparently, it's about an awkward pickup. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. That's pretty awkward. And Stewart is quick to point out that the song is not about him. Also awkward is that Stewart admitted to unconscious plagiarism and also lifting the synthesizer riff in the song. And those issues were both settled amicably out of court. But let's just go ahead and settle into some personal growth now in the book review segment of Morning Serial. That's where we take a few moments to reflect on lessons learned from the current book we're reading. And currently, we're reading through Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a timeless book that is consistently on all the must-read lists, and it's packed with rock-solid advice and actions for us all to use and build healthy foundational concepts to live by. And yesterday, we finished up Chapter 6, which was entitled A Safety Valve to Handle Complaints. And Carnegie revealed that, quote, most people trying to win others to their way of thinking do too much talking themselves, and that we should let the other person talk themselves out, encouraging them to express their ideas fully, end quote. Carnegie encourages us to listen, to be patient, to be sincere, and to be encouraging, as it often pays off for us just to listen. Carnegie's principle number 6 was to let the other person do a great deal of the talking. So that brings us today, and we're going to begin and finish Chapter 7 of Part 3. And that chapter is entitled, How to Get Cooperation. To begin this chapter, Carnegie calls on some of the previous foundations he taught us earlier in the book, reminding us that, quote, no one likes to feel that he or she is being sold on something or told to do a thing. We much prefer to feel that we are buying of our own accord or acting on our own ideas. We like to be consulted about our wishes, our wants, and our thoughts, end quote. Carnegie first illustrates this through a manager calling a meeting about lackluster results and enthusiasm with his team. And the manager begins the conversation asking his team what exactly they expect from him. After he wrote all the comments down, then the manager asked his team what they thought he should expect from them. When the comments came rolling in, they said things like loyalty, honesty, initiative, optimism, teamwork, enthusiasm, etc. Then, relaying the story, the manager said, quote, the people had made a sort of moral bargain with me. As long as I lived up to my part in it, then they were determined to live up to theirs, end quote. And the manager didn't have to stand up there and lecture his team about taking initiative or having enthusiasm. They came up with those ideas all on their own. And as such, those conclusions carried more weight because it was their conclusion, not something someone else handed to them or forced on them. In the next illustration Carnegie provides, an artist that was hoping to sell sketches to a studio had failed hundreds of times over many years to sell even just one. Finally, the artist changed his approach, and he went to the studio buyer with incomplete sketches asking how they would finish them. When the artist actually finished the sketches with what the studio had suggested, guess what? The studio finally bought them. The artist said, quote, this made him feel that he was creating the designs, and he was. I didn't have to sell him. He bought, end quote. Carnegie then accounts a couple other stories of people that planted seeds of an idea within the other person and then sat back and watched their idea grow, all on its own, into what the other person often felt was an idea they had come up with on their own. At times, this takes some time, a few conversations, and that's okay. People like to chew on an idea for a while sometimes, while it's growing in the back of our minds. Carnegie quotes Ralph Waldo Emerson from his essay Self-Reliance, stating, quote, in every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty, end quote. My interpretation of this, often when we hear a good idea, somewhere in the back of our minds, we think that we had already had the inkling of that thought. Maybe just we didn't tie it together or we didn't finish it out, but the idea has a familiarity to it. The point is that we are looking for the seeds in our own mind that will provide the answer, the epiphany. Carnegie is suggesting we plant those seeds for others and let them discover and grow the idea on their own. Carnegie finished out the chapter telling a story about himself when he was deciding where to go on a vacation, saying, quote, the others had been trying to sell me on their service, but one let me sell myself, and that organization won, end quote. Lao Tzu, a Chinese sage 26 centuries ago, said, quote, The reason why rivers and seas receive the homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. Thus, they are able to reign over all the mountain streams. So, the sage, wishing to be above men, putteth himself below them. Wishing to be before them, he putteth himself behind them. Thus, though his place be above men, they do not feel his weight. Though his place be before them, they do not count it an injury." End quote. And again, Sean's interpretation here, a true leader gains respect from a position of humility. Okay, here it is. In a chapter entitled How to Get Cooperation, Carnegie's principle number 7 is, let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. Tomorrow, we'll begin chapter 8 of part 3 with that chapter entitled, A Formula That Will Work Wonders for You. Well, I hope your week has been going great, and if you're facing a big project, a personal goal, or just another day on the grind, know that you've got this. Have the courage to just keep moving forward in a positive way. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and have a fantastic day. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Morning Serial podcast on the One Life Live It channel. You can find more episodes and videos by visiting our YouTube channel and the website at Sean Inglis and at SeanInglis.com, where you can also follow our other podcasts, the Mr. and Mrs. Inglis podcast and the Life Happens podcast. In these other podcasts, we'll dive deeper into everyday issues, self-improvement and well-being, business and finance, and we welcome special guests too. So join us. It'll be a good time, I promise. Thanks again for listening. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you tomorrow.